Are we ready?
Yes, I'm waiting for you. Today, you will take the lead to start.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm just doing a final check-in here. Wonderful. 12:30. Hello, everyone. Welcome to One-on-One with Can and GSC, our bi-weekly conversations with folks in the community. Ada, let's welcome the folks.
Oh, how's everyone doing? My name is Ada Chen, and I'm the Education and Outreach Specialist for Campus Advocacy Network. And Moises and I were so happy to have you join us. And then we're going to talk to our special guest, Rachel Caidor. We're going to have an intimate conversation. Rachel was nervous last night. And so I say, Rachel, don't be nervous. This is what the interview is about. We want to know the you in the moment. And so don't overwork, don't prepare, just come as who you are. We love you. So this is what this interview is about. One-on-one, we want to know the people we work with better. We want to know their personal journey. We want to know everything. So Rachel Caidor is the Assistant Director of Gender and Women's Studies. She is an abolitionist, feminist, and has been working for over most of her career addressing violence against women over 20 years. She is a rape crisis counselor, coordinator of Chicago Rape Crisis Hotline, founding member of Chicago chapter Insight, Women of Color Against Violence, also a member of Love and Protect, a collective to support women, trans and gender non-conforming people of color when they are harmed, when they are criminalized by the state institution. So let's welcome Rachel.
Hi, everybody.
All right, Moises, take it over for the first question.
Absolutely. Just so excited to have you here, Rachel. We've worked in the past. You are at UIC again. So exciting. In new roles. And our conversation is really about getting to know us a little bit more. You've had relationships with different folks on campus, but there are also some new folks who would really love to meet you as well. And one of the ways to really start off the show is by asking guests to tell us a little bit about their journey as a student. What were you like as a student? And you can decide whether you want to talk about the college experience or even before that, kind of you navigating academia, education. What were you like as a student? Tell us.
Oh my gosh. Well, it depends on who you ask, right? Because I'm pretty sure when I went to college, I went to college somewhere like literally across the country and in a completely different context from what I grew up in. And so when I went to college, and I was completely unprepared. And so if you asked my English teachers or my feminist theory teachers, they would be like, Rachel was a genius. If you ask my statistics teacher, they would be like, Rachel was about to get a D before she decided to go get some tutoring. So I spent a lot of time, for better or worse, I was really, really good at the things that I cared about. And then the things that I didn't feel were relevant to me, I really neglected, which in retrospect, I was like, I wish I had paid some more attention to things. I was really good though at making connections with my instructors. So my first year of school, first of all, I came from Miami to Indiana. I didn't know snow was wet. When I tell you I was unprepared, I didn't own a comforter, right? And so I was in a science class called Plants, Food, and Society. And I love plants, I love food, I love society. I don't apparently love science because I was flunking the class. And I ended up talking to my professor, who was like he was a lovely man. He was like, we're going to help you pass this class, and B, we're going to get you a comforter, And so like, I really learned the value of making those connections with your teachers. And most of my teachers like spotted the hot mess and were like very generous about it. And also like, like recognize that I also was serious about a lot of other things. And so they were like, like, we're going to try to do our best with you. Also get some clothes that go below your belly button because it's cold in Indiana.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a mess. Y'all.
Now, Rachel, I have a question. So you say that you moved from Miami to the Midwest. What was the experience like? Oh, I'm adjusting my. What's the experience like moving away from home the first time to a completely different environment as a young person? What was difficult for you? In terms of adjustment wise, what was the most difficult thing?
It was a real shock, right? Like I was very independent as a high schooler. So it wasn't like the shock didn't actually come from like having to fend for myself. Like I had jobs since I was 12, like it wasn't that piece of it. What was really weird was I moved from an area that was like very diverse, very multicultural, very like it was a city to a small Midwestern town where there was like white people, African-American people, and Mexican people, right? So like I came from somewhere where like if you are like people ask you what country you're from, like in the same, and when I moved to the Midwest, like I was like, oh, these people are Irish and these people are Polish and these people are Czechoslovakian, even though their family have been here for like 90 years and my family came here in the 70s. It was a really, really like intense cultural shift for me. And I went to a school where lots of the students, like an overwhelming number of the students were white, and an overwhelming number of students were like, these are the people whose houses my family cleans, right? So it was like a real shift in also like understanding the class dynamics of going to going to a college like this was like. And so like I went to I went to one of the most racially diverse Catholic schools in Miami, and there was a lot of economic diversity too, but that was not my experience in college. And that was really, oh, hi, Mary, it's good for you. And that was really like hard for me because like like the things that like, I didn't have a lot of perspective of like what rich people's day-to-day was like, right? Or even a certain kind of like upper middle class day-to-day. And it actually made me a lot more invested in sort of understanding how wealth is redistributed. Like all of these people, like I went to school with like, I had lovely friends and a lot of their parents went to that same college, right? And so like, I was like, oh, this is how that happens, right? Like you get to go to this school because your dad went to this school and your dad's dad went to this school. And we're going to go to Thanksgiving in your house in Barrington. And like, you're going to show me where you took horse riding lessons. And all of that was like, what is this? And then I was like, oh, this is how things in this country like get maintained, like that stratification. So it was quite shocking.
That's powerful, Rachel. And you're making me think of what were you then learning about yourself in your own identities and experiences as you're navigating a different geographical space, institutions, right? You're kind of sharing a little bit of those pieces, but can you share a little bit more about what you were learning about yourself and your own identities as you were experiencing getting all of these pieces as an adult. And the other piece you're talking about too that I want to just add in there is that you're talking about also relationship building, right? You're talking about the relationships you're making with the faculty in new spaces, and even the relationships you're building with these new students and these new peers with completely different experiences. So what comes up for you as I ask that?
Oh my gosh. It was a real, thank you for asking that question, because like, I think that when I first moved, had to really figure out like ideas of assimilation, right? And like being respectable, right? Like I was the first person in my family to leave Miami for school, right? Like I am the first generation college student, right? And like and I think that they, you know, I was like young and punk too, right? Like I was I'm not like, I'm not like, I was not the polished sort of like, you know, kid they put on the diversity pamphlet, right? And so like, I really had to commit to not assimilating, right? Like not sort of getting absorbed into this culture where it, like, I was already hyper visible because of my race, but you know, like I'm a very good code switcher, right? Like I don't, you know, like, and so like it would have been very easy for me to put on a blazer and like go to and like be part of like the Black professional students of my university. But I really chose to like, I made a conscious decision that sort of assimilation was not a price I wanted to pay for entry into that space. And I also like spent a lot of time like explaining to people shit that I didn't
it's okay. It's totally okay. We're swearing. But, it's absolutely allowed and encouraged.
Careful what you wish for. Because Moises will tell you I'm a sailor. But like people, like I'm Haitian, and people in the Midwest like were like, where's Haitian? And it was like at some point I had to like decide to stop explaining myself. Right. And then one of the things about like also being like I was like a punk rocker, and people really wanted me to explain myself all the time to them. And I was like, oh no, I don't owe you an explanation. I don't need to translate myself for you. And also like the reason you want to know is because you want to categorize me and put me in your own sort of like worldview. And I'm not here for that. Right. And so like, it was really like, I really actually like doubled down on so many of my identities, like that, like, you know, like in a lot of ways, I almost was overly aggressively like othering myself, because I was like, I am not going to like let the rest of this, like, because it was like a very homogenous university. I was like, I'm not going to let you think that this is normal and I am weird. I like, your shit is not normal. Like I am weird, but you're not normal. And so it was really intense. And I actually also had a lot of, I had a lot of lessons to learn about how like skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? Like a lot of like people, there was such a small group of people of color on the campus that like, I think people like didn't know what to do with someone who like cut the sleeves off all her t-shirts and like had blue streaks in her hair, and like, you know, in 1994 or some shit where like it was not cool, right? Like, or it was not like acceptable. And so there was a lot of like respectability politics stuff too, that like I was like, I'm not about that life, and it's not who I am, and it's not like how I'm going to survive this very, very cold environment, literally cold environment.
It's really interesting. I mean, you went to college at the age of 18, right? As a young person, as a young person, when you say it's a first generation college student, right? And as a young person to be able to, you can't confront issues unless you name it, not just name it to yourself, but name it out loud. And for you to be able to name it, right? And then to say no, in addition to naming it, I'm going to really abnormalize it to say this is not normal, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's where, and this is not easy for young people, for someone of a young age to do. And my question is, where is that spirit? Because most of us in college, we're thinking about peer pressure, we're thinking about being liked, right? Conforming. Where did that spirit of that fire and rebellion, the ability to critically challenge, not just critique, but really challenge the world, where did that come from?
Wow, that's a really good question. I feel like I was really lucky to grow up with parents who were perpetually disappointed in me, and so like there's no pleasing them, right? And so like I learned very very early on that like if you set your life up around pleasing other people, like that is like you're chasing a dragon that you're never gonna catch, right? And so like shout out to my negligent parents. But like also I grew up like I was raised by a lot of actually radical nuns who were liberation theologists and like really encouraged us to like examine the world through a social justice lens. And so like I was like one of those kids that like in my free time always volunteering, and like I grew up with children who like had to flee El Salvador and you know places like that. So like and like I think that I was very very lucky to be exposed to like a world where like who you are is so powerful that people will try to destroy it. And so like I was like you know like so there was that. And then also I was a punk, you know, and I think that like being a punk in that time was really about like questioning authority, questioning like learning things for yourself, and like building your own culture and building your own world, because the things that have been created for us aren't necessarily healthy for us. And so like when I was very very like lucky to grow up like defiant, and also sort of like seeing the fruits of people's rebellion like turning into like the foundation for what we have now, right? And so like we like the things that are like conforming things now, like things that we think are normal, were very often sort of the results of somebody's rebellion, right? And so like I was like you know like we can create a different world. There are other ways to be, and like also being on the outside is not a bad thing, you know, like being mistreated because you're on the outside is the bad thing, but the outside itself is not the bad thing, you know. And it was also a time where like you actually had to work hard to find your people, and I loved that search, you know. And like I had, you know, like I had so many different friends. Like I was friends with like the entire lacrosse team and also the punks, you know. And so like it's also a matter of like recognizing that you have to do the work of like actually understanding people as a group and individuals, because you actually might belong in spaces where you don't think you would belong, right? Like and also the places that you think might be like where you belong like are not, you know. So like the Black Student Union, like they wanted to like have dances and like practice being good business people, and I was like, no, we need to like desegregate this school and like get these people to like divest from South Africa. And they're like, and I was like, oh, so you aren't actually my people because we don't share a politic. But then all of the kids at Amnesty International who were trying to like abolish the death penalty, like very few of them looked like me. They were all like about to go be priests. And I was like, my people, you know? So it was, you know, like, yeah, I blame the punks and the nuns. Yep.
I do have a quick question. Now that, you know, you have such an extensive professional experience in working within institutions, And as we're talking about the spirit of rebellion in your youth, how do you bring that in your professional life, whether it is working in, let's say, rape crisis center, in organizations address women violence, violence against women, or even now here at UIC within institution? How do you maintain, right, that spirit, not just in terms of critique, but also rebellion? How do you push back within the institutional context?
Oh, well, Ada, I'm broken inside. I gotta tell you, it's broken me, but it's hard. It's actually really hard. And you have to get used to, you have to decide like that you don't have to go to every fight you're invited to, right? Like B, you have to think about what your vision is, right? Like, what is your mission? And like, what are you serving? And are you there to support this vision, or are you there to be right? You know what I mean? Like, and like, that was a really hard thing. Cause like before there was the word woke, I was like the annoying woke person that would like take up all the space in like class and meetings and be like, but this is, and I'm like, that's obnoxious. You're not helping anybody learn. You're just making people feel like shit, And so like, there is a humbling that like, once you get it, you figure out which battles you're going to fight. And also like, you can't do it by yourself. So you have to like figure out who your allies are. And you also can't be afraid of like generative conflict. You know what I mean? Thank again, very grateful for my neglectful parents, but like a conflict is not a bad thing. Right. And I think that we're so trained, especially those of us who are raised as women, not to have conflict and to be liked and like not to push things. And like the way we get things is through like being civil and all of that. And that's actually not how that works. And that's what kills our spirits after a while. Right. Like if you eat too much shit, then you don't like, then you're full of it. Right. And so like, that's, like, I think that I've gotten, and I will be very honest too, like I've actually gotten into conflicts that were not worth getting. And I lost a lot of really important relationships because I was like so committed to what I thought my perspective was like my way or the highway. And I burned bridges, and like some bridges are great to burn and some of them are not. And so like, I think that there is also like really being accountable to yourself for like the potential damage that you might do to relationships by like making it so much about your own perspective that you don't think about the larger mission and vision. You know what I mean? And so like, I think it goes back to the relationship building part too, is like, do you want to be in relationship with this? Are you in a struggle with somebody for years? Like I have teachers from college that I was a jackass in their class and we're still friends because like they, like we were able to have like really constructive disagreements. Were able to like work through them and like move apart and then come back together. And like that has happened with colleagues through the years. And like it's okay to not be liked, but it's not okay to be a jerk because you think you're smarter than everybody else,
I love that, Rachel. Thank you for being so honest and
I
vulnerable.
love you. Oh my God, I miss you
truly, so much. Truly. You're making me think of, I know we have limited time now, we have 6 minutes.
Sorry.
No, that's great. It's beautiful. I'm thinking about, I'll try to pull this together. We're in 2020, we're in a pandemic, things are more layered and complicated. You have been, from what you're sharing, from what I know of you, you've been really active and engaged in doing this social justice work in deep ways. I'm wondering what comes up for you as students, as folks who are even watching us now, and they're navigating this complicated time, right, in this new way. What comes up for you as far as like words of wisdom you can share, or things that are just coming up for you in this really complicated time that folks are really struggling with. Considering, I mean, you've been in the forefront, you've been doing this work internally and with other folks. What comes up for you as I ask that or bring that up?
Oh my gosh. I think that one of the lessons that, like, what I really want to encourage people to do is like lean on relationships. And like, you know, somebody, I believe like a lot of, this is like a phrase people use a lot in restorative justice work, is like move at the speed of care, you know, and that care also has to be for yourself. And like, invest in relationships that make you feel good and make you feel taken care of. And also like check in on your people and let people take care of you. Take like I'm seeing all these people in the chat, like Mary and Sungi and Dan and Veronica are all people who are like so good at caring for people. And like they like, and I think that like the way I am surviving this pandemic is like checking in on my people and letting people check in on me and being like, actually, no, I'm not okay. I'm a hot ass mess, right? Like, and being transparent about that and letting people offer help in the ways that they can help, you know, and like vulnerability is like absolutely critical to our political survival, right? And so like, we get stronger by like doing this, not doing this, you know what I mean? And so like I really encourage people to let themselves be taken care of and take care of other people and build those bonds, you know, and but also invest in things that make you feel safe and seen, right? Like not people who are going to like tell you you're flawless, because that they're lying to you, but like invest in people who like genuinely take care of you because you're you, not because of like who they want you to be. And those people exist. You just have to find them, you know?
Very good. Wow. I really enjoy this conversation. I ask questions oftentimes because I'm struggling with them, right? With the questions that I ask. And I think this conversation, it's really about how a young person being authentic, right? Being, about true to themselves, not just in terms of when they are young. It's easy to do when you have no invested interest in the institution. It's the key is really how to do that when you have certain relationship or investment in the institution. How do you do? Oh, and one final question quickly, just one, how do you take care of yourself so you can stay true? Just one thing. How do you really take care of yourself?
You know, like, honestly, I am an introvert. So like when I need to take care of myself, I introvert really hard. And the way that I get to introvert really hard is that I surround myself with people who let me do it. And so like, it really is about like structuring your life where people care enough about you to let you like take care of yourself in the way that you need. And so it is like about, again, like community and relationships. Like, it's just true, you know, like I like to like get on the text with Sungi, and like I don't want to get on a Zoom, but I definitely want to get on a text, and she will like hang out with me on the phone in the way that makes me feel like I can introvert and extrovert at the same time. Like that is really valuable, you know, and like that is how I take care of myself, is like my community helps me, you know.
Very good. Relationship, community. And I think one thing you mentioned is very important, boundary.
Boundaries. Oh my God.
I love that.
We're going to do a whole other live about boundaries.
Absolutely. We're at the end of our interview, 1 minute left. Moises, how do you feel? That's what I usually do to wrap up the interview. How do you feel, Moises?
You know, I love this conversation. Love you, Rachel. I think that your open heart, your vulnerability, and just the honesty that you bring to your journey is something that many of us can resonate with. And I love these themes of community and community care, So thank you for being here and amazing. Hello.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Rachel, how do you feel?
I feel so thankful for you all. I love UIC, USC fam. Like, I have deep love. And like, thank you for the work. I'm grateful. And so thank you for the work that you all do.
Rachel, I'm so thankful you are here. I'm so glad you're at this space. I really appreciate the content, words of wisdom, not just for young people, but for me, older people in the room as well. So thank you so much, everyone. It's 1 o'clock. This is the end. I hope you. This is actually our final show for this semester. Yes, you're closing this
You
event
closed us out.
And then
next, telling me that.
Perfect.
No, you're the yes. We don't want to make you nervous. But next semester, we're going to have new guests, do more interviews, and really explore the human side of the people that we work with, the vulnerable side, things that people struggle with. And so I apologize today. I have some computer issue, but guess what? This conversation is the beauty in the chaos that I need at this point. So, Rachel, thank you so much. Moises, thank you so much. I love working with you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Mucho amor.
Love.
Bye.
Bye. Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you.